Let's learn more about the fascinating history of Halloween with Dan Snow's History Hit.
Hello, North America. It is a big deal. The ironic thing is that the roots of Halloween are not in America. They're right here, in this little old archipelago of ours, in particular, the island of Ireland. And those roots stretch back thousands of years. Many of the traditions that we associate with American Halloween now are very Irish. And let's start with pumpkin carving. Tell me about the beginnings of that.
There is evidence of carving turnips, not just in Ireland, but also in England and in Scotland and in Wales. So in all likelihood, this is an idea that would have travelled with people to America, not just an Irish grouping, I suppose. But there is a custom of just hollowing out a Swede turnip or a suede turnip. So you hollow that out and then you carve a face on it, and that's used as a lantern. I think you call them maybe jack-o'-lanterns in England and in America as well. And that was supposed to light the way, particularly in Halloween when it's associated with this fairy activity or activity from the other world. So this was light the way and to keep you safe in that sort of context of uncertainty.
And that evolved into the pumpkins that we carve right across the world today.
Yeah, there is this idea that the turnip was replaced by the pumpkin because the pumpkin looks much better. It's got that beautiful, vibrant colour and it might be a little bit easier to carve. The flesh is a bit softer and you get this spectacular looking orange head once the work is done. But in more recent years, in the last maybe 5 years, there's been kind of a revival in Ireland of carving a Swede turnip. So you have to hollow out that, and that's a bit difficult to do because the interior is very hard. And you can carve out the eyes into the nose and the mouth and all sorts of stuff and put a candle in that. And they look fairly bad and fairly frightening. I think they look better myself, actually.
I'm going to make my kids engage with their Irish heritage now and carve turnips this year. That's going to be great.
I'll just give you a hint that it's probably not very traditional, but if you've got a melon scooper for making melon balls, that kind of kitchen tool, that makes carving a Swede turnip really easy. I've done it myself.
Yeah, because it's that time of year when the kids are allowed finally to get all the kitchen knives and everything gets a bit loose. It makes me a bit nervous. So, okay, thank you for that. And what about the ultimate thing we associate with Halloween, but turns out has got its origins in Ireland as well, which is trick-or-treating?
Yeah, and this, I suppose, is what children looked forward to for the most part, Dan. I think it was this sense of just being set loose out on the streets or set loose on the country roads, and the children went from house to house asking for donations for a kind of a party that happened at the end of the night. And not just the children, but also the teenagers saw this 24-hour period, particularly when it gets dark on Halloween night, as a period for complete mischief and disarray and social disorder in many ways. And they played big tricks on local communities, taking gates off, throwing cabbage stumps against the door and running away and all sorts of stuff. So it's not just confined to the children in terms of collecting, in that it does venture into the teenage years and so on. And likewise for the games that the girls played in the small cabbage gardens, like pulling cabbages and just looking at the root of the cabbage to determine the character of their future husbands. So there's all of this thing which extends to the children's games as well. So it is a night generally of mischief and disarray and fun.
My grandmother, my Welsh 9, remembers as kids it was very much bar the doors and the streets in that kind of respectable early to mid 20th century British world. The streets became raucous and riotous, and it was a time when respectable folk stayed inside and very much kept themselves and drew the shutters.
And that's the sense as well that comes through from the folklore accounts from Ireland, in that it was kind of a free-for-all that night. Nothing very bad, but there was that kind of thing of mischief and disarray that was associated with it.
So, talking of great Irish exports and traditions, tell me a little bit about the parades that happen at Halloween, because I've looked online and the costuming, the puppeteering is incredible. Is it Mockness? Is that one of them?
So Mockness is in Galway, and that is not in Ireland for Halloween this year. I'm here in the UK, but that is where I would be going if I could. It is just a real theatrical feast. It is so exciting. It shows the best of Irish craft. It shows the best of Irish making, the best of Irish theatre, but it's also situated in Galway, which is just an incredible city. I don't know if you've ever visited Derry, but Derry is also known for its Halloween parade. We bring out the puka at this time of year.
What's that?
A puka is a ghost. So the Puka Festival, which you'll find in Ireland as well, but the puka is moving closer to the dead as we come to All Souls and All Saints.
There's a real narrative here in the UK, isn't it, that Halloween is this foreign American festival. It's another symbol of our sort of cultural subservience to the Americans. So why don't we take great pride in the fact this is something to celebrate that is from these islands?
And even in Ireland, we're having a real resurgence in that. There's this Gaelic revival happening in Ireland at the moment. We're calling it the second Gaelic revival. One happened at the turn of the 20th century. It's happening again now. The language is starting to come back into use more so. People speaking even broken Irish, just be using the language again. But the Halloween traditions, such as Muckness, such as the puka, such as the parades across the country, they are really showing the origins of where this festival comes from, the Celtic, the pagan origins, and how we are getting back to the land a little bit with that, as opposed to it being so commercial.
You mentioned the puka, that it's a ghost, but what makes it so special? Because presumably there are a lot of ghosts knocking around Ireland.
So puka is Irish for ghost, and you'll often find the word puka in Irish place names. So Paul na Fuca is the hole of the ghosts, for instance. So you'll find it in different places around the country. But I want to point out there is a difference between the puka, the world the puka comes from, and the world the banshee comes from. Earlier, in the very early days of After Dark, we spoke to Derry Girl actress and friend of mine, the lovely Siobhan McSweeney, and we had a bit of a discussion about what exactly the banshee was.
What do you know about banshees from your perspective, having come from outside Ireland?
To me, a banshee is a little bit like a mermaid.
It's a really good question whether it's uniquely Irish. Banshee basically is Gaelic for a fairy woman. Ban, woman, she of the fairies. Maybe it's in Scotland.
Do you know, I think it is kind of uniquely Irish, linked to the Tuatha De Danann. And if you don't know what the Tuatha De Danann is, it's basically this pre-Christian fairy folk that surreptitiously ruled Ireland. It was almost kind of folkloric and religious in its own sense. And it was this kind of army of fairy people, basically, who were manipulating all different types of things. And the banshee comes from that mythology. There was a Lannan Siada, who was the spirit of life. And then the Banshida, or the Banshee, was the spirit of death.
The banshee is part of this fairy alternate world.
Alternate world, because for the people who believed in the Tuatha, it wasn't alternate. It was very much intertwined with how they experienced everyday life. So it was far more present than we would even think of religion as being now, or people who follow certain religious beliefs.
My understanding of it is actually not even as a woman, just as a wailing noise.
So the sound is really important.
It's actually, I think, you almost try to block your ears. So if you don't hear it, it's a way of...
I did that as a child. I do remember being in my bed with the bedclothes pulled with the fingers in the ears. I do remember going, no, we're not hearing this. I don't care what's going on, we're not hearing it. Because she was just around. Probably helps if you've got a bit of an imagination. She seemed to be quite present.
She did, and perhaps uniquely rural. Certainly with the wind, the fact that she would be a woman or a fairy woman, it was only ever the voice that struck terror.
On Midsummer Eve, when the bonfires are lighted on every hill in honour of St. John, the fairies are at their gayest, and sometimes steal away beautiful mortals to be their brides. But on November Eve, Samhain, or Halloween, the fairies are at their gloomiest. For, according to the old Gaelic reckoning, this is the first night of winter. The night the fairies of the other world dance with the ghosts, the puka is abroad and witches make their spells. It's a dark night, and there's a chill in the air. The breeze moves through the dank woodland in the old west of Ireland. Through the trees, there is an opening. Figures gathered around two huge bonfires. They're celebrating the end of harvest time. This was a grueling few weeks of collecting all of the produce they've grown throughout the year. They're marking the end of the lighter months, welcoming with some trepidation the darkness to come, and the threats of illness and starvation, or even death, that comes with it. It's at this time of year, so they believe, the division between this world and the other world is at its thinnest. The spirits of the deceased can move back and forth over the divide. Now they are ready to greet and welcome their dead ancestors. Some wear costumes so they can disguise themselves from harmful spirits.
This is the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, and this is where Halloween began.